uh,
Hey,
Oh snap, we back.
go,
Oh, I
go.
was going to
Oh,
the mix.
we ain't got to
you
keep
know.
going. We
I
got to let that keep
know.
playing.
I need to let that just play, right? Welcome everybody to the BOP. We are the Blurred official podcast, and we are so excited to be live. We are live. So if you are watching, get in our chat. We want to see you. We want to hear from you. Hilton George, how are you doing? You're coming off of Blurred Con. It is, I know the show was amazing. I wish I was there. I was like living vicariously through these social media posts and chats. And I want to congratulate you on another wonderful show because it seems like the people had fun.
Thank you. Yes, it
Yes.
is. It was a true homecoming, and there was so many people who came out that I hadn't seen in a year or more. I saw
Yes.
so many people who just were reconnecting, and we had this amazing guest in Orlando Jones who just did an amazing
Oh,
job.
he's
He was doing
amazing.
comedy, and he was talking about serious subjects, and he was doing interviews, and he was interacting with people. There's so many pictures and videos, and the people just
He's a
loved him.
dream guest.
He's a dream guest, and it was a
Dream.
perfect theme with him being Dr. Lee with drumline, and then us open
Yeah.
it up with a drumline, and it was the
Yes.
typest opening
Which
we've
I
ever
might steal that
done.
idea from you. So I'm gonna tell you now, a year in
He
advance.
said, "Ranger Stop gonna have a
That might be
drumline."
a Ranger Stop and Bob. So don't be emailing me and don't be like Karen and stole my I'm gonna take the drum line idea because
Listen,
that was
what I
dope.
don't have no problem with people taking that idea, because I tell you what, I ain't got not near bit of musical skill. I
Right.
can't tell them people what to do.
I'm
I
gonna
just
bring out
got out their way
my
and let the
first chair
blackness flow.
clarinet, skills. I'm gonna bring it out. Bring it
Oh, I'll
out.
be with my recorder, my little kazoo, play the
Oh,
kazoo.
okay, before I introduce the beauty of behind this whole beautiful show, I see you got something new behind you. You got there's an extra helmet or something's going on behind you. Can you
Oh
give us a close
yeah,
up of that?
yeah. This is Machine 56. I collect these helmets, and
Oh
this is
my
this guy
goodness.
who does these tech helmets back here. He's out of
Nice.
Jakarta, Indonesia, and me
Oh,
and my
I
friends,
might
we're
know
just
him.
we're big fans of his work. His name is Yoga. He does amazing work, and every now and then he drops his a limited amount. He only does 40 of these, and then he breaks the
Yeah.
mold. So you know you're not going to run into people with them, and they're collector's items. They're wearable art, and I'm
Yeah.
a huge fan of techwear, and this is always a big part of it.
I
So
did a
I just
show.
got it. I just put it up here today, so I'm
Yeah.
psyched.
I
I'm
did a
very
no.
show
psyched.
in Jakarta and like those guys were out. Like they had their oh my god, it was amazing. Christi Renee, the beautiful, the fabulous, the effervescent. How are
The
you?
queen of
Queen,
quarantine.
Queen of Quarantine. How you doing?
Fantabulous as usual. You know, I love a good theme, honey. This is why I am built for the whole cosplay, Comic Con, everything,
Yes,
because
you
I
are.
love to dress up. So I am in theme for tonight's show with you all. I am transported back to the 80s.
Yes.
It was a great scary time.
I
Mm.
wore I wore my Dustin hat. This isn't from Stranger
Okay,
Things, but he always wears a
Oh,
trucker hat.
I
And so
love
it's
it.
like
yes.
this
Gotta
is
be in
he's
character.
one of my favorite characters. Yeah, as she mentioned, we are talking Stranger Things. I know the last time we went live was probably more than a month ago, like a couple months ago, and we were talking Stranger Things then. But this time we're talking about it because we are finally able to talk about volume 2 that came out. So I'm telling everybody, if you have not seen it, it's your fault. It's been out forever,
It's
and we're gonna say it. We're gonna talk about everything. We're not gonna hold back. So if you don't want to hear about it, then you go somewhere. But it was the most amazing season. Like I kept telling people, I was like, season 1 was always my favorite just because it was so good. It just like they threw us into it immediately. They wasted no time. We fell in love with these kids. We were just, it was like the Goonies. I was on an adventure. We wanted to find Will. It was just so like, I mean, it was just crazy, right? This season had gave me the feels. Like it gave me all of that. There was drama, there was adventure, there was, love and friendships and just everything. And then there was so much tragedy.
yeah.
Oh,
and
someone
they
asked.
breathe life into
Oh,
Kate Bush's
yes,
song
she's got the
"Run
Right.
Up That
hugest
Road."
hit.
Oh
Right?
man, that
Like,
that is everywhere now.
yeah, to
Yes,
have
it
like
is.
a hit, like a one hit wonder, and then 20 years later, it's a hit again. Like, I know she's like, thank you, Duffel Brothers. Thank you, Stranger Things. Like, oh, but it was
Listen,
just. it broke my heart. This season broke my heart in ways I didn't realize it was going to break it. Like, it was,
now,
yeah.
I got to jump in real quickly and just render this quick bit because, you know, I am a diehard Handmaid's Tale fan, and they all jumped on the whole running up that hill, and they were like, "Oh, we already heard that in Handmaid's Tale." I was like, "It's okay, guys."
There was some beef. Like, people were getting pissed because they were like, Stranger Thing is getting credit, but Handmaid's Tale had used it, and I was like,
it's just another passing of the. You just gotta let it take its running course.
It's
the
just
beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's just Kate Bush making some more money, and I'm all for a woman to cash a check 20 years after the fact. Like, can I get some residual income? Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it's a great song. So anyway, I just have to make that point. But that's again, if nothing else, the show, what it does is just it forces you. If you're not ready, then you're not watching. But if you're ready, then you are just, again, transported back in time into this era that you had this nostalgia, again, an organic aesthetic in every way. And it's recognizable. You can do, again, with the side sweep, pull it up, the mismatching earrings. Come on, Janet. You have that era.
I'll take all y'all's word for it about the hair and the earrings. If that was what did it for y'all. I was watching the Dungeons and Dragons play at the Hellfire Club. That was what was nostalgic for me, because I remember those clubs. They weren't quite as intense as they were in this series. But man, it was like, oh man, that was life for me. That was life.
Yeah.
But to your point though, Karen, it just shows why, again, yet another what's the word I'm looking for? Another thing, I don't know, that has a life of its own, has taken on a life of its own ever since we were first introduced to it. And it has just grown, and it feels so real, and it's so fantastical, but tragedy indeed, and it has depressed a lot of people.
Well, because it's always the person that you didn't expect to fall in love with that, it breaks our heart. Like, it was like Bob the Brain, like when Barb, nobody knew he was gonna fall in love with Barb. Like, when Barb died, we were distraught. Like, it's almost like they kind of figured it out how to add this character in, and they're not like, dominating anything. It's just they come in and they just are these amazing characters and amazing actors, and they steal our hearts, and then they die, and we're like, no. But okay, so after we watched volume 1, we were left with, I thought, with one of the best cliffhangers where, they realize it's Vecna. They realize Vecna's been around for a long time. They're trying to get out of the Upside Down, and they're all climbing out. And then all of a sudden, Nancy is like, her eyes go crazy, and they're like, oh my gosh. And we're like, is Nancy going to be next? Is Vecna about to take her out? If you kill Nancy.
We didn't know who was going to get taken out. It was just like a horror movie. We didn't know.
Yeah.
What I liked about the format of this, which I think is different than the previous seasons, is that it had that real haunted house horror hardcore horror base. There was an actual haunted house in a way. And there's, that whole idea of, ghosts moving through, another dimension, making lights flicker and everything like that's a whole movie device, and
creepy. It was just creepy.
Right. And then there's a horrible murder at the core of the ghost story. That was really the thing. And you don't know how these things are connected. You got this Vecna character that nobody really understands, and they're kind of telling the story about number 1, who didn't really know that there was a number 1 until this season. And
you suspected, because you were like, if she's 11, where is 1 through 10?
Exactly. And then you're not sure if she did all the murders and killed all the other kids or what. And we're getting bits and pieces of these 3 separate stories being told in almost 2 separate timelines, but also 3 separate places. And then we get this amazing horror story of the story of the family coming in just post-war, greatest generation, baby boomer, moving into this lovely house, and you find out that it's not some existential, demon that's timeless and ageless, and from the creation. It's the kid.
It's the damn son.
It's a kid. And I'm like,
he was there the whole time.
The whole time it was the kid. And then he ends up in the little group hospital therapy, whatever you want to call that place. And then you just watch the story go forward, and you're screaming at the screen. Like, oh my God, I cannot believe that he is at the core of 3 murders.
He's
like
one,
oh my gosh. And then your boy is Freddy Krueger. His name was playing in the role. Like all the horror fans went crazy about that too.
Like, they did it all right.
Robert Englund.
Robert Englund. And what I loved is that, like you said, there was this kid, and it just took you back to like when we first met 11 and all these questions and where did her powers come from, and then you like you said, we got to meet 1 through 11, or I mean, we got to meet all these kids that had these same powers and what happened to them. And I love how they set the story up to where we start the season off and we think 11 did something terrible, and you're just like, but no, she's so sweet. Like how it just made it, they always make you question everything, right?
Until she busted that girl in the head with a skate, and then we're like, wait a minute, maybe she
might have that in her.
I didn't know.
That was my favorite part.
That was my favorite part.
I'm the only one giggling. I gotta be the only one laughing at this. This is hilarious.
No, Christy, no, that's bad. It's
not bad. I wanted her to bust that girl up against the head, because I was like, why is she? Why are there always mean people in Hawkins and in California or wherever they were? But one thing I will say is that they always do that to you, where you think one thing and then you realize it's another. And one of the things that got me was the whole character arc of Papa. We've been hating Papa since season 1. Papa was mean to 11. He was doing things to her, and she ran away from him for a reason. And so we thought Papa was dead, and then he comes back in season 4, and we actually realized that everything he was doing, he was protecting her. Like he was protecting her from one, and he was, his way of doing it was terrible. But then you go through these episodes, and episode 8 is called Papa, and you realize like he is not nice. He is not nice. Elle finds out, like she piggybacks a memory or whatever, and she goes and she finds out because after Nancy wakes up from this trance that Vecna has her in, they realize they have to do something to kill Vecna, because he's just going to keep killing, and he has one more person to kill, and that's the 4 deaths. Something catastrophic is going to happen. 4 gates. They know something is going to happen with 4. So Elle is listening and basically saying, I've got to go help my friends. My friends are walking into a trap. They don't have what it takes to take him down. They're going to be killed. And Papa puts his foot down. And the Papa that we hate comes back. Like right when we started to like him again, here this controlling man comes back and tries to drug her. He takes, the other doctor. It's just like,
But thinking about that now, of course, knowing what we know now about him, and again, I get it. These kids with these special powers, I feel like his whole motivation, though, now, again, knowing what we know and seeing the bigger picture of the governmental agencies who will go to everything we've ever seen. I mean, the most recent is like The Man Who Fell to Earth. So it's like you think about the government agencies, and just they will kill people to keep a secret.
Or they don't want things to like ever, like they kill things they don't understand.
Right. Or yes. And so, or people who find out about this thing, they'll kill them, just regular civilians. But it seems to me with Papa, though, remember now, roll that beautiful beam footage. When I predicted that Papa was going to have a change, there was going to be a thread in him that was a hint of good, and he had good intentions. Now, he didn't always do it the best way, but I feel like he created that space for them so he could protect and control two things. One, how they functioned, because they knew the world or the government would not be ready for none of that.
Help them develop their powers.
And yes, and that's my next point. Especially for 11, because he saw something. He knew one was out there, but he saw something in 11 that was bigger and powerful, more powerful than one. And he went to all the extremes, obviously, to protect her. But of course, we don't really see that until, he takes his last breath. But
it's also about the context. There's two sets of threats that we're looking at here. One that he's looking at is that there's an entire military industrial complex about to bear down on the lab, right? And there's also Vecna, which is probably going to destroy our reality. And his instinct is to protect his lab, protect his child, and protect what's nearest to him. And he doesn't seem to have any compunction about letting the world go to hell if he can still keep, the idea
control
that
of the situation.
He would rather control the situation he has in front of him than to let her go and potentially die, or worse, turn into a worse version of Vecna, number one. And so, you're getting a mixed bag with him, that he's doing something for the good of what he thinks is good. But then we start to see it in full context, and we're like, oh, well, your good is not as good as we thought it was going to be. And so when he dies, even 11 doesn't want to say, that she understood him or any of that stuff to give him comfort before he passed. And that is her letting go. And once he's gone, she's able to go and save and fight for her friends.
But she couldn't have been as powerful also. Remember, like, he had to get her to a point to really get her power.
I think it's one of those. Yeah, I think it's one of those complicated relationships where it's like he obviously was trying to help her hone her skills and control her power and focus it, and she's a child. She didn't even know what she was born with, Right. But then there's also he would manipulate her. And I love the whole scene with them together where she said, I came here to find out who I was, to find out if I was the monster. And she goes, Papa lies. And he goes, you're going to believe him. You're going to believe Henry. And she realized, she goes, you always had me searching the dark. You had me looking for him. And he's like, no. I had you looking for the Russians. She goes, no, you had me looking for him. You loved him and you could not let him go, even knowing what he did to those other kids. And you knew he was out of all of them, he knew that Henry was bad. Henry would kill his family. He knew Henry didn't cut, he wasn't like the other kids who were pure and they didn't know what to do with their powers. Henry got his powers and started killing animals. He was killing his family. He framed his daddy. He was doing some crazy stuff. So
he gave up on the human race before age 10.
Yeah, exactly.
And was ready to send the world into and the fact that Papa still loved him and was searching for him, even if it was just to bring him back into the circle and control him, kind of lets you know what's going on with his delusion. And you see, I can't remember the character's name, the other guy, his counterpart, who keeps you're crazy. We need to let her go and do this thing. She's a grown person. She's Paul Reiser's character,
Dr. Owens.
Dr. Owens, and you see him okay, I can see now I'm losing control of the situation.
Yeah.
And then he throws everything into the wind. So that whole dynamic there has played out in full circle. Matthew Modine played an amazing role as Papa.
He needs,
so creepy and so stoic and so unreadable, where, all the characters he used to play, and there were some folks freaking out online about the fact that he was playing Joker from Full Metal Jacket. They didn't know that he was Private Joker. And I was like, well, I knew, but that's a whole other thing.
Right.
Matthew Modine has been around for a long time.
He's been around forever. And Stranger Things is not his first IMDb credit. This is a legendary actor. He was one of the names. They got Winona Ryder and they got Matthew Modine. And then everyone else is pretty much unheard. You kind of seen them and stuff, or they were new. They were new to this. Yeah. Okay, so, but you know what I will say? This season, it was Max's season. Max, she, I was, the other day, they announced the Emmy nominations, and people were pissed because she did not get nominated. I was one of those people. I am people.
Yeah.
Because this was her season. She was so good. she was tortured, she was grieving, she was like, I mean, she went through everything. And her scenes with Lucas, her scenes with, I mean, every single time she was on the screen, she just took me to another place. I mean, I just remember the one episode where she, she's sitting there reading the letter to Billy and just crying, to the brother that tortured her. But she, and she just like all of a sudden goes into that trance. And I'm like, oh my God, she's gonna die. Oh, but
could not let her go. Could not let her go. And the idea that music would be the key to breaking the spell, I think was an amazing storytelling device. They got to get the Walkman on. We got to find her favorite song. All of these different things. The music plays in, and you see that with Eddie Munson. Eddie gets up and he does this amazing rock out.
Metallica.
It is so iconic. And there's already
it's true
people
to
out
the
there
80s
cosplaying
though,
him,
because that's when that's when heavy metal music really took its was at its peak in the 80s.
Well, his wig and his outfit was straight Eddie Van Halen. I told him that was Eddie Van Halen
all day,
top to bottom, and people were like, "Oh, you're crazy," because he didn't have a guitar. And then when he started rocking, I said, "See, that's that look that they went for."
I mean,
and that hero arc was amazing.
You got to be blind not to see some of the most obvious homages to these different iconic staples in again the era. It's like, come on, like all of the things. I mean, from Halloween to, we mentioned Freddy Krueger having Robert Englund on. It's just to Eddie's hair. I mean, listen,
I didn't want him to die. There were other people I wanted to see go. I did not want it. I said, he could get a spinoff. The Hellfire Club could be just like, they could do some amazing stuff with him.
I knew it though.
Got so much energy and so much personality, and he was barely likable. Like he was just, it was like you saw him and you're like, I don't know whether to hate him or love him, but he's so intense that I just have to back away from the screen. But over time, as you see him bonding, with Dustin, and you're like, oh, they've got that same bond that him and
Steve Harrington
Steve has, and you're like, okay, they're connected.
Opposites. Eddie looks like one of the cool kids, and Dustin is still the little nerd, and it's like, oh my gosh, the way they and again. Then you have the classic American boy in Steve Harrington. I didn't think I was ever gonna like Steve Harrington.
Well, they always say Steve's arc is amazing because he was the kid we wanted to hate, and he ended up being like one of the heartbeats of the show, where he is just the nicest. He's the nicest guy ever. Like, he takes care of those kids. And
him and Dustin just having this bond, this rapport, and timing with one another. It's like almost Big Brother, Little Brother / Abbott and Costello. I just could not wait for the next scene with those two, because they were just so hilarious. And I really wonder how much of that was off the cuff between the actors, because I really felt like there was some organic happening between them. That was stuff that was not in the script, and I'm laughing because he's saying, oh, we got flashlights, and he like turns and he's like, do you need to be told everything? Like, are you a child? Like, he's literally like 8 years younger than you, and he's like looking at you like, dude. Like,
Dustin is the adult in all the relationships. But I felt Eddie's demise coming, because when they were like, remember right before they decided they're getting their weapons ready, and they're in that field, and they're all like kind of in like groups of two, and him and Eddie start playing, and they're like hitting each other, and he grabs Dustin and says, "Don't ever change. Don't ever change." I knew right then. I was like,
that's some final before I go into the brief type stuff right there.
I was like, they better not kill. I at one point I thought they were gonna kill Dustin, and I was like, if they kill Dustin, I'm about to riot.
I'd be at Netflix headquarters.
if one little hair gets messed up and Dustin's curly head,
black folks like bed not, BEHT, bed not.
Oh, listen, my God.
Steve Harrington's character. I mean, Steve Harrington, the actor. He was on good Lord, one of the late night shows last night, one of the Jimmys, and they pulled out the picture of the billboard that popped up all over the place, of course, before the volume 2 dropped, and it was protect Steve. And it was so funny because the crowd went crazy, and he was like, he said, because the host was like, listen, you know, the people were taking this serious. Netflix really, when he says, well, actually, I paid for that. And I'm like, oh, that's good. They're all such cool individuals. I watch them on everything. And one of the things I love, we talked about Winona Ryder and Matthew Modine, because these people were staples, again, in our area. I mean, think about when Beetlejuice came out. Like, you've got to
watch Winona for my whole life.
And so even Hopper, the actor who plays Hopper, they do again, they've got all these different, moments where they have these, like a press junket of sorts, but they have created these memorable moments. And he turns to Winona and is like, are you kidding me? Like, I heard Winona Ryder, like, from Beetlejuice. And he was like, and it was so real. You could tell that authentic energy. He meant that. He said it with his chest. I was in the moment with him. I was like, oh, that synergy. It's that incredible. And again, it's a formula. If people, I wish they could bottle it, but then we'd be zombies watching TV and movies all the time.
I think, but you know what though, Christy? I think they have bottled it, because you're watching the Duffer Brothers. Their entire motif is homage to so many of those old.
It's a love letter.
Yeah, it is. This is living, breathing series love letter to the horror, directors and producers and writers of the 80s and 90s and even the 70s. And I'm wondering, we forgave, I don't want to say forgave, but we did not look at that homage as blatant and as direct as it was, as somehow taking away from the story. We just enjoyed the ride. So I'm wondering if this becomes a like maybe some type of a pattern where, you say, hey, look, some new upstart director comes up with another series that maybe it's on Hulu, for instance. Right. And they say, hey, you know what? We're just going to pay homage to Lon Chaney and all of the characters he played and all of the writing he did. And that whole 50s horror era, and would that be a way for a new generation who's not going to go back and watch Christine or any of these old horror movie tropes that we're citing as older adults? They're not going to go get the VHS of these and watch them, right? But they'll watch this and enjoy it in that same way. So I'm like, maybe they're onto something. As a way of repackaging something that was probably a better way to tell stories. Yeah. Maybe not physically going back into the 80s, but the way they use these devices so expertly, I suspect that every time, Stephen King was watching one of these episodes, he had a warm feeling in his heart.
He had to.
You know what I mean? John Carpenter had to be like, oh, you guys, you're so sweet.
It's like the best love letter, but then, why I think they get it right is because it's such attention to detail, and it's such like care, and like they pick the songs that they grew up listening to. They played D&D. They were those kids who were in the AV club. They were the kids that, like they were literally those kids. So this story is like they're telling their childhood. It's not something they just created. And I think that's where, like, when you're a writer, you always have to, you might be writing about Vecna and Upside Down in a world that you're making up, but you have to find some sort of grounding, or you have to find some sort of connection that connects you there. And for them, it was their love of horror movies and their love of, their childhood. And that's kind of like, when they fell in love with horror movies and they played, D&D with their friends all night on 10-hour campaigns and, all that stuff.
It's the whole thing. Riding bikes, street lights coming on,
Pop-Tarts. Eggo waffles. It's like all of it. Yeah.
I mean, come on, Karen. We know this. This is what we did.
Totally. Well, you know what I love though, also about this, and I'm kind of shifting, is that when they tell a new season, or when they it's like they almost like, you think you know everything, but then you know nothing, and like it opens up the door to all these things that you didn't understand, or that were just right there, so obvious. Like when they showed us that it was not the Demogorgon who was hunting Will down that first season, but it was Vecna. I literally had to go back and watch season 1, because I was like, I have to see Vecna. And Vecna's like standing right there. Like, it's just like, I'm like, how did I just quickly assumed it was, the Demogorgon. But it's like, the Demogorgon didn't have those powers where he could get into someone's mind and make them all of a sudden be in the upside down again. He didn't have those powers where he could open the door and he could, but it also makes me ask a lot of questions, because I feel like there's way more to Will. Like there's way more to him than meets the eye. Like, you think about it, he was in the upside down for a week, and he was obviously singing, that his song, that his brother that he loved. But like when they found him, they found him with the upside down, like that thing, that like snake thing in his throat, and he survived all it. Like, it makes me just wonder, like, why did Vecna take him, and what was the point of taking him?
We got
a
season coming up where I think it might. Look, we got so much from Will. I mean, think about this. Like, and they didn't spell it out.
Yeah.
Will's in love with 11.
And in love with Mike.
He's in love with Mike.
He's in love with Mike.
He's in love with one of them. He's not happy that they're both off the market. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And he's struggling with those emotions, and he's like just really, really in pain with it. But the history of this show is that when any of the characters find themselves in this type of an uncomfortable position where they're questioning, like, their own heart and their own minds, they make themselves vulnerable either to turning to do something bad, or make themselves vulnerable to being attacked by something bad.
So the fact vulnerable.
That so we know now that this story is not over. There will be another season. So the evil has not left. Where is it going to come from if Vecna's gone?
Yeah,
there's nowhere else for it to come from other than Will. And a jilted lover, or an isolated friend, or a lost soul is the perfect ground for, if he's got some type of infection or whatever from the upside down, that being taken advantage of and being the source of whatever we have our antagonists do for the next season. And I was watching his every move, because I really thought he was going to do something this season. And I was like, wait a minute. What are you doing with his face over there?
Well, they said, like, remember in the last episode, in like the very last 10 minutes, Will said Vecna is not dead. He's hurt, but he's not dead. I can still feel him. I can still
is still there.
Yeah, like, Will is connected to the upside down in a whole nother way. And his character, Noah, the young man who plays Will Byers, he actually was on, he did an interview with Variety this week, and he said, okay, let's just, let me just put everybody to rest. But Will is in love with Mike, and he is, going through, he is, coming out, and he's dealing with all of that. And he goes, but that's not the main thing of the story. So he goes, that's not what you need to focus on. There are other things, but he goes, but it does connect. Like, Will's going to be more, like, I guess the Duffel brothers confirmed that Will be a more integral part in season 5. And I was like, of course he is.
I didn't even see the interview.
I feel like that's how we started.
I knew it.
They bringing it full circle, because that's how we started. We started this thing really obsessed with Will. I mean, we didn't
disappeared
because he was gone, but everything was about Will. And I think they're going to close it out with Will is now, we're going to obsess over him, and he's going to be seen. And I think that just makes a bigger statement. Like, I love that he made that statement to Variety, because I was just talking to my daughter again, all in the same age range as these kids. And of course, she is super conscious. This girl teaches me phrases and concepts and things that I'm like, okay, is that what you call it? I didn't know.
Right.
We were talking about it. I said, what I love so much about, because we were comparing it to another show that was kind of similar, came on Netflix. or something. Anyway, and so I said, one thing about Stranger Things is, yes, we all have these assumptions about Will, but they don't make it the focal point, and they don't make you, it's only going to be the crazies that make a big deal about it, like whatever. Right. But they have, again, they stayed so true to the themes and the point of it's humanity. Again, we're back at humanity, and what do we do to protect humanity, and putting that at the center. And it says a lot that he would even say, but don't get obsessed with that. That's not what you need to be worried about, whether whoever Will loves. He's a teenager. He's trying to figure it all out. And that's new to him. And I'm going to tell you, one of the moments that made a tear was when Jonathan, his brother, said to him, "I've got you. I am here." You recognize, and again, they're not going to have this, because in the 80s, nobody talking about that.
Yeah.
So it was just, I understand something is happening, and I am here for you. And I thought, oh my God.
Well, they said that was like the saddest scene, when Will is in the back of the van and him and Mike are talking, and he pretends like, Levin had me do this picture for you, and you knew all along he was drawing this picture for Mike, and this was Mike, and then Mike shows up and he runs into Levin's arms, and he's like, I'm not going to show him. And so he just, you knew at that moment. And then after he gives Mike the pep talk, like, you're the heart of the group, you're going to be the one, she needs you, and even when she doesn't need, she still needs you. And it's really like, he's like, I need you, and even when I don't, and she's weird, and and it's totally. And then Mike is like, yeah, and then he turns around and cries. Everybody's like, how did Mike not hear this boy sobbing?
Mike is 15 years old, and
a total 15-year-old boy.
I'm telling you, I know 15-year-olds. You can, if you're not on fire or bleeding out next to them, they're not paying no attention to you. I'm telling you, no, especially if there's some other stuff going on. So I totally bought that, especially with the timing and what they were doing and what they were going through. And it was a real interesting device to have the pizza guy. What was the pizza kid's name?
Argyle.
Argyle. I love Argyle. He has been in some TV shows and movies.
He's amazing.
I love first of all that he's Native American, and
and his look, I just love it.
And not stereotypical stoic Native American either. Stoner,
he's high.
Just high all the time.
Somebody got to be high in the 80s.
17-year-old Cheech and Chong riding this crazy van.
The reference to Cheech and Chong is perfect.
Oh my gosh! And like, if you watch any Cheech and Chong movie, they're always going somewhere. And they're high. Either they're going to get high, or they are high and are traveling because of that.
They're never not high.
And for them to have these two stoners sitting in the front seat, trying to strategize, trying to save reality,
save the world,
right? And they're like, we got to go here and we got to go there. It was just really cool to add this character who seamlessly integrated into the group. Like his entrance was totally believable, just like Eddie.
Yeah.
He was introduced and he didn't feel like he was kind of like, oh, here's this guy and someone else is kind of funny.
Character.
Yeah, especially since all the adults in their lives are in Russia the entire series.
The whole movie.
And nobody says shit. Like it's not even, it's like you haven't seen your mom in like 4 weeks and no one is even thinking about this while you're traveling cross country across the Midwest desert in this rickety old pizza van with a stoner driving it. And it was just so funny that everyone was so caught up in their part of the mission that they almost forgot like that they're kids. And so we almost forgot that they're kids. And we were taking like all the drama is adult, all the situations are adult. And even though the conversations were in the context of adult themes and they were kids, they were still taking them as adult conversations.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting journey for us as the audience, because now they're not doing like in season 1 and 2 where they got to work around the parents. Like, we got to sneak out, or, I got to do this about my mom finding out, or, I got to hide this. Otherwise, they're just like, it's just kids. We're getting shot at and I don't know where my mom is. So keep driving and hit the, I love it.
I loved it too. Now, speaking of Russia, do you have something to say?
God. I was just going to say real quickly about the actor who plays Karen. You usually
Argyle.
Who plays Argyle. He is. When I tell you he looks like that in real life, I was so impressed. I was like, this is not a wig, honey. This
Eduardo
is
Franco. No. Eduardo Franco.
That's his
Franco,
hair.
listen, we love him. Yes.
Eduardo was a great addition to this.
Exactly. Again, to add to the authenticity of, I mean, they're going to get the authenticity of these teen kids, you know, that we saw in their preteens going into their teens. And now, again, adding new characters, how everybody is just so believable.
It made sense because the buyers moved to California, and here you are out of the Midwest. You're going to meet more Native American. You're going to have a more diverse cultural friends, you know, because it's like you're in California.
They could have chosen a beach blonde, you know,
and thank God they didn't.
And they didn't.
Yeah,
because we're looking at everybody else. I mean, thank goodness for Lucas. You know what I mean? And little Erica.
I also thought it was timely that in the context of pizza and pizza history, the late 80s, the mid to late 80s, where this is taking place, is when, pizza delivery, because
delivery blew up.
But this is also when the first parts of the country put pineapple on pizzas, and that debate is still raging to this day.
Right?
It's like
some people will fight you if you order a pizza with some pineapple on it. Like
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Show of hands. Anybody? Show of hands. Yes.
I don't hate. There's no bad pizza.
There's no bad pizza. I don't not like it, but I don't choose it.
I don't do anchovies. That's about it. But other than that,
I can't do anchovies. Yeah. But speaking of Russia, we go to Russia. Half of the show, or a third of the show, is Hopper and Joyce in Russia, and Murray and Joyce. Murray. Yes,
Hands are like arrows.
He is the best. He's the most amazing.
Shang-Chi.
Yes, we get the cliffhanger in Russia was that, you know, they're able to break out Hopper, but the Demogorgon is loose, you know, and we don't know what is happening. So we find, you know, we find Joyce, Hopper, Murray, and the stowaway guy. We find them, you know, hiding out in the control room, and they realize, like, you know, Murray says, he goes, they can climb, and you see the Demogorgon climbing up and like is about to eat and kill the guards that had been torturing all of the prisoners. And all of a sudden they hear this noise, and it's like, rah! And they're like, oh God, there's another one. And they bigger one. Yeah, and they go into the room, like the secret room, and there are tons of Demogorgons. There's one alive, half alive on the table, like an operating table. And it's like they were over here doing all these experiments, and then they turn around and they see whatever that energy is, what is it, like
they
the
call
upside
it like
down
sand or the dust or something.
The mind flayer was something, right?
What it was like the concentration of that stuff that was falling from the sky in the first two seasons, and it was like the portal or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, it's all right there. What do we do? And I was like, oh damn.
But they have one thing I loved about Russia is they had like some really integral moments. Like we had the whole moment of when they, you know, they get a moment to like try to figure out how are we going to get out of Russia? How are we going to, you know, that's the next issue. We don't have a plane. And, you know, Joyce and Hopper in the room by themselves.
Yeah.
And, you know, and she sees, like, he takes his shirt off and she sees how tortured he was. Yeah. Like he was in this prison, and she's like, what did they do to you? And they start having this whole moment. It's funny because she's like, what are you excited to do when you get back? And he's like, go to Enzo's. Like, and he's talking about
breadsticks.
He's talking about the breadsticks, and she's like, her little face is like, whoa, whoa. And so, you know, Joyce had to put it on him and be like, is that all you gonna be missing? Is that all? And Hop was like, oh, it's like that. It's and they, you know, she basically is like, look here, I'm ready. I came all the way to Russia to save you, bruh. And so, of course, Hopper and Joyce finally kiss. They finally, know, they love each other. Yeah, we've been waiting since like season 1.
I was wondering if Murray was going to be the one.
Right.
Saw, like,
I was like, if Murray does a Jonathan and swoops in, I was going to be mad. Like, I was like, don't you be stealing Joyce from Hopper. See,
don't be
blocking shit.
Don't block. Do not block Murray, please.
Yeah. But we finally got Murray and Joyce together. Yes.
I have to say this about Russia, though. It's very interesting because, again, we can't like talk about the things we talk about without making the connections and reality and all of that. And so the interesting thing is, I was watching something, and this has had nothing to do with Stranger Things, but what was a very common thread in the 80s was
the fear
of U.S. relationship with Russia.
The Cold War.
Right. So when you think about, you know, like Rambo or
Russian Spies
Like Us or whatever, I mean, everything has always been
the bad Russian.
The bad Russian. And here's the thing. Of course, it's incredibly timely because they had to be, I'm sure, filming and editing and all of that was taking place since, you know, the whole war has been going on over there. And so, but they've never been good. Like, it's sad. It's frightening. It's just never been a healthy relationship with Russia and really anybody, I guess.
Yeah.
In a, I guess, especially when it comes to democracy. So it's just very interesting that we're able to watch that. And again, that's another thing on the checklist that they got right, that they paid, they stayed true to, and you know, that's where we were in that era. And then how it translates today, thinking of Russia, you know, I think about, you know, how we've got, I don't care what anybody says, like 10 years in a Russian prison because you forgot to take a vape cartridge out of your bag in a rush to get back to play ball or whatever the case may be. Brittany Griner is there. So it's like you think about those things, and we're watching a show where they have, when they revealed those extra Demogorgons, I was like, you know what, this is what's wrong. This is what's wrong with the world. And all I could do is, let me pause real quick and talk about, to myself, of course, how crazy the times are, and just how these messages and how these themes and how they
still holds true.
Still holds true. History repeats itself, and just how it's like, that's the different version of instead of nuclear war, you've got these weird outer space biological type warfare.
Think about it this way, Christy. You know, what was happening in the Russian prison camp / research facility isn't that different from what was happening in Papa's lab.
Right.
And it's like, you know, there's horrors happening here in this arms race for this supernatural power that is being, you know, brought about, and we're trying to study it and figure it out. And they're doing the same thing, except they don't have kids. They got these monsters that they pulled out of the great beyond, which they opened on this side of the country when she banished, you know, number one through the hole and created the hole to the upside down in that gate. And so it's like this domino effect that we're seeing, the first domino as we go forward. And you're seeing that, as horrible as that is as a prison camp, like, we're doing just as bad stuff over here. We're killing kids, and they're about to let a murderer go free just to stop a secret plan from going public. And, you know, all of these things are happening. And I'm just like, the judgment was the only thing that was missing. Like, at no point did the story or anyone in it kind of go, well, we're the good guys on this side of the ocean and they're the bad guys. It's really just focused on, you're in my way, we want to get the hell out of here, and focused on that. And everything else was kind of equivalent. And there were no heroes on our side as far as the government was concerned. There was no real heroes on their side. Everybody was self-interested, even the guard that was helping him. You know, and it was just like really interesting to see this weird balance happening that, you know, could have easily been, you know, like the military, U.S. military is going to come in at some point and save the day or whatever. It really was just them trying to save the day and get themselves out of Russia. And I was like, okay,
do we think also, though, into to that line of thought, that L represents, so again, something so much bigger, that while she may be looked like, you do the comparison between the US and Russia, and these are weapons and weaponizing things, even though this monster, we can't reason with this monster, we can't put a dress on this monster and give her no egos. But L represents something, even Vecna. Like, Vecna was a human, and or, you know, what's his name? What was his first name? I forgot. Anyway.
Henry,
yes. Henry was a kid. I mean, he was human, so on and so forth.
Psychopath.
But L, right. L represents, I think, the full scope of it. And the whole point is that again, it's the humanity. It's bringing it back to the humanity of, and I'm not trying to say we outshine anybody in this country. Lord, please, y'all do not mince my words. But I will say that if I had to choose which weapon we have, I'm going to choose 11 as a weapon of choice, because again, there is a level of humanity. She wants to protect her friends and her loved ones. She has found she loves, and she loved before. She knew love. Well, she loved her mother.
Well, remember, we know that, but the U.S. government that was trying to chase her didn't, and they were almost certain that all the stuff that number one did, she did.
Yeah, they don't know about number one
doing the murders today, and so they weren't even in a position. They weren't even poised to that whole point of trying to make the judgment call. They were like, kids are being murdered in this supernatural way, similar to murders that took place 10 years ago in this lab. We think it's this girl because she's the last one that we know of that lived from this lab.
There's evidence,
so we got to take her out, because if we take her out, then all the murders go away, the upside down goes away, and they're not even aware of what's going on over in Russia.
Right, they have no idea.
Yeah, so even though everything you say is 100% true, the fact that the government has put themselves in a position where they can't even make that decision or get that information puts them willingly into as bad a place as the Russians are in. Because they're just trying to strafe the whole thing, like get it all out of the way. We just want to kill everybody and act like this thing didn't happen. Meanwhile, Vecna, the real villain that they don't really believe exists, is planning to open a portal and, turn the upside down into the right side up or whatever.
Or he's going to make our world.
I don't know what the name of the plan was.
Hawkins will now become the upside down. It's also like interesting, but also relevant. Like that's where the Duffel brothers always love to connect it to like real life things, and even something that happened in the 80s, like you said, it all repeats itself. One of the things I loved about Russia was that fight that Hopper had with the Demogorgon, and like just the plan, like we have to come back, and Murray's like lighting them on fire, so all the little ones die, but then the big one, the 18 foot Demogorgon, however tall he is, like he was still there, and he had to fight him with the sword. And I was like, oh, it was like one of the best like action scenes.
Well, I harkened it back to that sword that he had in Hellboy. I feel like they were kind of giving him that scene again. He's got this demon that he's got to fight, and he's got this historical sword, and he's right back in that role. And so my mind was like, okay, he's back in Hellboy mode, doing his thing. So I kind of like that they chose that weapon, for him to fight with, because like I said, there was grenades and claymores and machine guns and flamethrowers. There's anything they could have thrown in there with him. But they gave him I think I heard somewhere that sword was a prop sword from the original Conan the Barbarian. I heard that somewhere. Another hearkening back to the 80s.
It was totally. Can we give it up for Jamie Campbell Bower, who played he basically played Vecna, and all of that makeup. He sat in the makeup chair for 8 hours every time we saw him. Freaking, like he had 8-hour makeup sessions.
The crew. The crew on that.
You know what? The makeup team who does the regular the period makeup, they got nominated for an Emmy. The special effects team got nominated for an Emmy. Like Stranger Things was undeniable. Like if you didn't nominate them, who was we gonna nominate? Like they created a whole monster, and like, I mean, gosh,
that was so believable, and not much CGI at all.
It was all like almost real.
Aside from the little tentacle pieces that would move, this was actually the makeup, doing its thing and doing its work, which again harkens back to the 80s, because they could have easily carried out, a CGI.
They could have had them little dots on his face, and
they could have done all that. They're like, no, we're gonna, for the close-up scenes, that the actors were looking at this horrible, something for them to play off of.
So good.
You just like those things are just, the things we love about 80s horror and early 90s horror is that there was no CGI and that you saw, graphic violence. Someone had to make that, and someone had to make the split apart and make that blood splatter and do all those things. And it gave the actors on the scene something to play off of and made for better acting. And I think we saw some of that play out in ways we can't even see in the acting and the performing. Because these kids run around a haunted house, chasing this, and they don't even know what they're going to do when they find him. Yeah. Like, just imagine, you're with them. It is just like a horror movie where you're like, everyone's running toward the danger. And that always drives me up the wall. And I'm like, but then again, where do you run?
What do you do?
From an extra dimensional creature that can just pop up in your head anytime it wants to.
Yeah.
So it really, really made a difference.
That final scene though, like the whole final montage, like I loved it. It was so cool how they had, Hopper and Joyce and Russia fighting the Demogorgon. And then they had, you had Max and Lucas. Lucas is fighting the guy that I hated him more than I hated Vecna.
I hated him more than
I hated him.
Yes.
I wanted him to die, but he's like physically fighting the guy. Yes. And then all of a sudden you see Max like rising up in the air, and he steps on the headphones, so he can't turn the Kate Bush on for her. And then you have, Nancy and Steve and what's her name, Robin. They're like getting choked out by and it's like, it's all
11
happening.
Has her moment, and it's all this converging, and it's just like emotional
Erica's
payoff.
like getting about to get beat up by the mean other guy, and I'm like, who beats up on a little girl? Like, what is happening?
Listen, those guys, those frat guys, and they weren't frat guys, but that's only those jocks were worse than Vecna in my mind. I was really like, come on, dude. Like, at some point, you gotta realize you're the villain in this, and you gotta slow the hell down.
Well, didn't you love like when the gate opened and it like ran over his body, and you knew he was torn, that the guy was torn in half? I mean, that was the only thing I liked about the gate opening was because he died.
Right.
I know, it's like, Max. Oh, but the scene of all scenes was Lucas and Max when her bones start to pop, and and Elle is able to stop it, but she's not able to stop it in time for it not to affect her. And she falls into Lucas's arms, and Luke, she goes, I can't see, I can't feel anything. And you're just like, it broke my heart in ways.
That scene was so powerful. I think every moment of that young man's acting career came out in that moment. And I don't think a lot of actors get that type of opportunity on screen, especially at such a young age. And for something so powerful that has been built up over so long with these characters, and watching it just pour out on the scene in the midst of this climactic, 5-minute montage that is going crisscrossing the country, Russia, all happening at once. And it's just, it's victory, and it's pain, and it's defeat, and it's horror, and it's all happening at once. And that's just the Duffer Brothers, just brilliance, saying that, we could just have her go and beat Vecna,
be dead.
But there's so many fights that are happening here, and he's fighting for Max's love. He's fighting for their friendship. He's fighting for their relationship, and has been like the entire season.
Fighting for her trust.
Her trust.
Because she was like, so like with the wall up, with grief and
to see that vulnerability on her part, and not know if she's going to live or die. And you're just like, we're just wrecked.
We're wrecked. Well, they said that the young actress.
Christy's wrecked now. Look at her. She's Christy went to a bad place. Good energy.
Well, remember the line he says where Lucas says, "Erica, help me." That was a total ad lib. Like that was not. That's how much he was in the moment, and they were crying, and it was like, like these kids, they all deserve to be. They needed to be recognized. Man. Like I'm mad.
I know we run a long time. I don't mean cut nobody off.
No,
I just want to say
we can run over.
Okay. I just want to say something. If there's anybody watching this, either live or watching recorded, if you are not watching Stranger Things, either because you just felt like the train left you behind, or you're just tired of people talking about it, what are you doing with your life? If you just don't like quality shows, say that. If you just don't like good stories, say that. If you just, I mean, you know what I'm saying? If you're just that person, and I know people like that,
don't know no better.
Just say that.
Say that.
Do not want for one
if
second.
If you're the jock and that you're offended, say that.
Netflix has got it all sitting right there on the platform. So you can binge it in a week if you really put your mind to it. It is some of the best television, and I even hesitate to call it that.
It's really
this
not.
Is cinema
that was
quality production.
That was like like a whole bunch of movies.
There is no bad seasons. There are no down moments. There are no bad performances, and you cannot say that about any series. Not Game of Thrones.
No, you can't.
You can't say that about any other series.
Game of Thrones was good until season 8, and then we were like, "What the fuck's happening?"
Yeah,
come on.
And to see them get this far, and they still.
I don't need 10 seasons if a couple of them ain't gonna be good. Just give me what is gonna be good.
get on it, because you are depriving yourself of an amazing experience. And this season just really just blew me away in so many ways, and
it made you feel everything. You felt everything. I was scared out my damn mind. Christy can tell you. I was
right.
Y'all
was together.
I was crying. I was, and then what I loved is they left us where they defeated. They lost. They lost this time. The kids did not put Vecna. They did not put the Mind Flayer. They did not put the Demogorgon back in his box. They lost, and that's when you know it's a good show, when the heroes lose as well as win.
And walked away from Mike Myers with the knife still next to his lifeless body, and they were like, "Oh, I'm so glad that's over."
They lost, and I mean it's just like we said, it's phenomenal performances, it's phenomenal storytelling. Let me see, did we miss anything? Because I mean, it's just,
I want to comment just
please.
In our overall context here, we've talked about, just the authenticity to the era and all of that, and it's something, I want to connect why I love the Duffer Brothers so much. They remind me, what they did with Stranger Things, reminds me of why I love a director and writer and creator like Jordan Peele, who we got to hold 1 second, because we
I'm gonna go see it. I wish I could see it with one of y'all. I'm gonna have to see it by myself.
But listen, Jordan Peele, when Us came out, y'all see I have Us in my background. When Us came out, Jordan Peele said something really interesting in an interview leading up to the film. And so, y'all, we live, and my dog's gonna act the fool, so hold on. Bear with me.
Another horror show.
You're right. He said something very interesting, but he made it a point, because they were like, okay, you have all these references. So when you watch Us, of course, you got to watch it a few times. But when you look at the things, they were trying to understand his psychology behind, like, why this movie, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And so, when it starts out, it's the 80s. He says, so many things frightened me in the 80s. He was like, I mean, you have the girl, she's got on, little Addie, she's got on the Thriller shirt, and then on one of the movies on the VHS on the bookshelf next to the TV is Chud. If you've never seen Chud, oh my God, it's, a nightmare. But again, relevant to the movie Us and the theme. And so when he starts talking about all these different things, and of course, Hands Across America, I mean, who didn't know that commercial or that movement? And it's like, for the Duffer Brothers to do what they've done with Stranger Things, again, they were both pulling from this magical book, this magical playbook, I guess, of this is how you make it 1000% authentic and organic and real.
They hit all the nostalgia notes. Like, they're hitting our nostalgia notes. Like,
and that's what makes it work, is when you pull that authenticity into it, actual things, and tie it in. And that's what they did. And you know how we feel about Marvel on here, y'all boppers. Y'all know we are crazy Marvels, but we are also crazy. We've got some other things that we are crazy about. But this franchise right here, this Stranger Things, if you are not one of these kids from Hawkins, I don't know. Again, Hilton said it best. I don't know what you're doing with your life.
I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is the thing. Like, everything you guys said, they have created a love story to the 80s. And the 80s is very much a character in this show. Like, it is very much a developed character. Like, we see the change in times and this and that. And it's so authentic. And I mean, like he said, if you're not watching, I don't know what to tell you, but it is amazing. There are 4 seasons out. I've literally started watching season 1 again just because I had to see Vecna, and and I'm literally watching it like it's brand new with brand new eyes. And in most shows, I'll watch a show over again, but I'm watching this one really inspired me because I'm watching it in a new way because there's so many things I thought I knew. I watched it 10 times. But I didn't even know until this season. Like it's like now it's like I'm seeing everything that is there and all the hints and all the clues and oh man, it's so good. I still think we're just gonna make predictions for season 5. I think number 8, she's gonna come back. We saw number 8 in season 2. Number 8 is gonna come back. They don't do anything for no reason. Number 8 is gonna come back. Callie.
I thought she was coming back this season.
I did too. I think something crazy gonna happen with Will. Like we gonna find out Will is a whole nother because it's like, what was he doing in there for a week? And then like I read one of these, like, you know how you read all the fan like stuff, and they were saying that Will was leading them to danger because every time Will would show up and he'd be talking to Joyce and all this, then the Demogorgon would show up. So Will was being used to like lead them to the Demogorgon would. It was not like Will would show up and, you know, he would be able to talk to them. He'd show up and some shit would pop off. So like think about like that.
He's a beacon or a tether or
something.
Well, he was a spy in season 2. Remember, he was a spy for the Mind Flayer in season 2. Yeah. He got completely taken over and didn't even recognize them.
Things still in him.
When he popped up.
No, he said he still feels it. He goes, I still feel him. He feels the upside down and feels the Mind Flayer. So we know. And think about the picture he drew for Mike. He drew this big dragon thing, and Mike and all of them are fighting him. Like, think about what he's predicting in that painting. Like, I'm just telling, that's my predictions. I don't know. Okay.
I gotta say, I agree with yours.
I agree.
I got nothing to add to that.
Any other predictions? I think. What do we think about Nancy and Steve? Are we team Nancy and Steve? Or are we team Nancy and Jonathan?
Oh, I'm team
it's
friends.
Hard. Oh.
I think they all just need to be friends. You don't have to couple up.
Like teenagers, they got to be in love with somebody.
Well, you know what though? I think it showed, like in this season, I think it showed that Jonathan, he's not in a place to be in love. He's in a place because he needs to protect. He needs to be there for his brother. And he said, I need to be there for my mother and my brother. I can't go off to college and live this life that's not mine. My goal is to be here with them. And that's what his life is calling him to do. So I think it will.
Right there.
Yeah. And I think it's going to really come down to some shit going to pop out with Will, and Jonathan's going to have to be right there. And Nancy, she going to need to go have them 18 kids with Steve and ride around in a Winnebago.
That's so funny.
I think that's 100% right.
I think the parents are going to play a bigger role too in season 5.
Yes, Lucas's parents need to get involved.
I love Lucas's parents. I love. I want to see more of them. And I love Mrs.
Who's going to die?
Oh, everybody. It's going to be sad. I just know this.
Somebody's going to die.
Somebody's going to die.
You know somebody's going to die. It's going to be somebody that matters.
We know Ellen's probably going to sacrifice herself to save her friends. I honestly think some of them kids the people we love the most, somebody's going to die, and it's going to be heartbreaking. Like, our heart's going to be broken in ways we have not. We thought our heart was broken this time. Whew.
And that was Eddie. Whew. We just met him.
We just met Eddie.
Can you imagine if it was one of the dream team?
I know.
This would be a 4-minute episode for me to break down.
It's going to take a lot. We're going to have to, I feel like
at this point,
I feel like everybody that's left, with the exception of Elle, because she is the exception, I feel like you either take none or you take them all. Like, everybody got to go.
Don't you Sophie's Choice us. Don't you pick one. Yeah. I don't think they can live without each other, right? Oh, okay. So what is the prediction about Max? I think Max is going to come back with some powers.
I think something's.
I think Elle crossed the line by bringing her back from the dead, and she's going to be
and not
she's
just
got
that.
some Elle DNA now.
Yeah, Elle did something to her in the hospital, and we don't know what it is, but it was something that that might, just like you're saying, might give her some type of at least insight, like some type of a connection. And we have learned that every time something from the upside down has anything other than a murderous interaction with someone from the right side up, that person is forever changed in some way. You know, you see what happened with Mike, you see Elle, you know, so there's going to be something that's going to happen with that. I think it would be interesting to see if Vecna's not dead, that we might get a little bit more of an insight into Vecna's mentality. I think there's more story to tell than we've seen.
For sure.
And they've done a good job so far of giving us, you know, the bits and pieces that built up to this amazing story. And the fact that I know that there's so many more players out there that we're just getting to know and whose stories are just kind of come full circle. Yeah, I think Max is going to come back with some power. Is going to probably have some power like Elle's, or be some type of an augmentation to Elle.
Something.
You know, now, something in there. If you make that prediction, this is what I predict.
Tell me.
Everybody survives, because now Elle has a little army, and we can all leave.
She'll have Callie. She'll have Max. She'll have maybe possibly Will. Like everybody's connected now.
I feel like if more than one is like 11, then there's a chance that. And again, it goes back to one of the things, of friendship, and you got to have a belonging and connection and togetherness. And hell, we could all just ride off into the sunset and everybody's fine and they go on with their lives. Boom, done.
I didn't think what happened.
I don't think the Duffer Brothers are planning a story where everybody survives, as much as I would like.
I know. I don't either.
Just the fact that you put that out in the universe, I think someone's calling the Duffer Brothers
right
now. Talking about,
they think they're gonna have a happy ending.
You got to do them in, man. You got to do them in.
They think there's gonna possibly
be a happy ending. You got to wipe out half the crew.
Chrissy said there was gonna be a happy ending on the BOP. And you know the BLERD Official podcast, yeah. Chrissy said that. So you know, y'all do what y'all need to do. Kill them all. The approval of all order. The kill has been approved.
What we do know, it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we are going to love it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to never forget this adventure. I didn't watch it immediately when it first came out, but it only took me. It was the first season. After the first season, I was like, I'm gonna go watch this.
Yeah, I watched it. It was after the first season, and it was like right before the second season was coming out. Everybody was talking about, you know, Stranger Things, and I was like, "Well, let me watch this."
It was me. I was people.
You were telling me,
not you specifically, but I was telling everybody. I was like, "Look, y'all need to get up on this show on Netflix, man. They're tripping." And it was all, you know, it was one of those things, you know, it was pre-COVID. You had to binge a show. You really had to sit down and watch it.
Yeah.
And I was hooked from the minute I turned. Soon as I saw the credits, the opening credits with that 80s style soundtrack, just like a little bit of Firestarter with some, you know, the Dead Zone, you know, notes in it. And I was just like, oh, I know what they doing. This some 1980s, you know, some Magnavox watching
on the Casio keyboard.
Adjust the UHF on the Zenith.
On the Casio keyboard, then like the music sounds came from the Casio keyboard we all wanted for Christmas.
You go.
Stephen Real in our comments, he says, I think Will sacrifice himself. Starts and ends with him. That's a good theory.
I think Steven. Will's brother gonna sacrifice himself, and Will gonna survive.
Jonathan will save Will. Yeah, Jonathan will die for Will.
Sacrifice right there.
Yeah.
Sacrifice comes from outside. Sacrifice don't come within.
Yeah. Don't get me started. Well, let's shout out to everybody that joined us.
Please go ahead, Christy. Name them out.
I'm just saying we got a lot of good.
Hey, Angela.
Hey, Vicky. Vicky's one of my YouTubers.
Yes,
She's with me
Russell
on YouTube every week. I just love
Derek Dodson, Jonathan
Brian Massey, what's up? You had a lot to say. Really good stuff too.
Good stuff, Brian. Matt, Raymond. Guys, we're not gonna talk about Power Rangers. So I hate to break your heart. I hate to break your heart. And I'm not gonna stop in the middle of the show and go hi. So I'm doing it now. Hi guys. I love you. I really love you.
We
came here with a mission.
y'all got to stick around, because that's when Karan Ashley and Hilton and myself will shout you out and try to interact a little bit. But yeah. And can we, before we go, I touched on it for just a hot second.
Good comments, Brian.
This Friday.
Yes.
In theaters.
Oh.
Nope. Listen, if y'all don't go support Jordan Peele,
I'll just go buy the ticket and buy popcorn and walk out.
No. You know what?
I don't like to be scared.
Hey, we're gonna have to do another live show next week. I'm telling you, because I got to talk about this, or I've got to go live on our.
We got to give them
now
2
we got
weeks.
now we look now we got to get
we got to give them 2 weeks.
That's right.
The pitchforks and the torches out front, ready to go.
We got to give them 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, we're going to go live. We'll talk about Nope. We're saying it live, so it's going to happen.
We're going to on Nope.
You guys, y'all were amazing.
Opening weekend. If you haven't watched all of the interviews and different pieces that they've done on it,
I love Keke
God.
Palmer. I want to see her.
I love her. None of us know what to expect, and it's not what we think, and that's what I love about Jordan Peele. Anyway.
Yes, another amazing writer. So guys, we went over 15 minutes because you know what, we love y'all, and we couldn't stop talking Stranger Things. It was an exciting season 4, volume 2, and we just wanted to give it all to you. I want to thank my co-hosts, Hilton and Christi. You guys are the best. Y'all know I wouldn't do this with anybody else but the two of you. And look, the puppy. Hi, puppy.
We love doing live shows.
There's another one. There's another one.
Dogs. Oh, Lord.
She's got 18 animals.
I know, right? She's got a whole zoo going on over there.
I went over her house one day and she had this cat that was trying to eat me, and I was like, if you let that cat loose, I'm leaving. And that cat was like she kept going to me.
That was 100 years ago. She's so extra.
Yeah. And I was like, you and all these animals. I have no animals. So you and all these animals, you keep them to yourself. The dogs I can handle. Dogs I can do all day. That cat was going.
You got Dr. Doolittle going on over there.
Totally. Well, guys, we gotta go. We are way over. Dana, we're sorry, but we just couldn't shut up. But we thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are the BOP, the BLERD official podcast. Every Tuesday. Check us out, and we'll see you next week.
We love you.
Tune in every Tuesday for a new episode of the BOP, the BLERD official podcast.